welcome to the UAS Ketchikan Campus Library. I'm Kathy Bowling, and I'm grateful Anna Clark, and it's just telling me to move to the right. We are open to the public. You can get a library card here, and just check with us at the cert counter so you have access to our collection, which is different than the public library's collection because we base it on what we teach in special research interests. We have a really excellent history collection, for instance, and a collection on local cultures. We're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We're also doing One Campus, One Book with Juno and Sitka, and Disability Visibility by Alice Long is our book for this academic year. And as a part of that, we are doing a film every Friday for the next couple of weeks on the subject. And so at 3 o'clock this Friday, we will be showing, Defiant Lives, a film by Sarah Barton. So that's at 3 o'clock. So the next couple Fridays.
In here at the library?
In here. Right where you are. You can have your seat. It'll be the same. It'll be the same setup. So I'd like to welcome our instructor, Professor Barbara Morgan. She is the instructor for general studies. She also runs the GED program and just had an undergraduate. It's just very exciting. But she is best known for her expertise and local knowledge of birds and plants. And keep an eye out in your mailboxes because our spring semester is coming out. Registration is open. And I will let Barb tell you about the class that she's teaching. And they fill it fast. So, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
Thank you. Thank you everybody for coming out on such an icky evening. I'm super happy to have people come by. So my spring class that's going to be open kind of interest for the public is called The Flora of Southeast Alaska, and it is really focusing on the plants that you'll find in this area. In the summertime, I have 2 more classes, which is again like kind of more stuff is growing and alive in the summertime. So in June, I have an intertidal class that is a lecture and then 3 field trips at 3 low tides and then a final wrap-up lecture. That's happening in June. And then in July is the Plants, Lichens, and Fungi of Alaska, Southeast Alaska, which is a lecture and then 3 Saturday field trips in a row and then a lecture to wrap things up. So those are our classes that have a lot of public interest. People want to know like what kinds of things live and grow around this area. Those are interesting for people to sign up for. So my goal, I get to teach classes about what kinds of things live and grow around here. I teach the Natural History of Alaska class. I've been teaching biology classes to like high school age kids and whatnot for a number of years now. And all of the classes that I teach, the most common question is, can you eat that? So in the springtime, we've been teaching classes about, and some of the things people ask if you can eat, I'm just like, what makes you think that you can eat barnacles? Anyway, but we do have classes that talk about the different resources that you can eat in the area. So we're doing another one of those in the springtime as well. So focusing on the beach foods that we have in the area. So kind of keep an eye out. So spring again is the Flora of Southeast Alaska as well as the beach foods class. That's what we're going to be offering. My goal is to learn everything that lives and grows in the area. And I'm never going to actually manage that because there's like 900 species of plants. You know, that's just the plants. But I want to know, I like knowing what lives in the area. Tonight, my focus is going to be on some of the birds that live in this area or visit this area. So I did a bird presentation about 3 years ago, shortly after COVID started. And like quite a few other people, when COVID started, I became a much more avid birder because it was safe to be outside and, you know, birds are happy to be, you know, birding is a happy kind of a pursuit, right? So at that point, when I did my first bird presentation, I'd been a more active birder for just a few months. And I had a pretty fair number of bird pictures, but mostly of commonly seen species. So in the intervening 3 years, I've been out taking pictures of birds and now have actually quite a few pictures of birds that are rare and even like pretty darn really rare to sort of rare to uncommon. And I wanted to share some of those with you tonight because there's a lot of birds you can find out here. If you get hooked on birding and you want to like go out and look at birds and you go to all the different kinds of places where you can find different kinds of birds, you can see a lot of different kinds of birds. So I'm gonna just, all the pictures are pictures I've taken of birds in this area, Ketchikan area. If you have any questions as we're going through, don't hesitate to ask. I do have like 70 slides to do it in an hour. So some of them I might not talk about a whole lot. If you have questions, let me know, okay? I've put them together in order of how they are presented in the Sibley's bird book, Birds of North America. Sibley's is my favorite, and it's available here to check out the library. I would highly recommend having a copy of the bird book. To become a little more active of a birder, you don't need a whole lot of equipment. You can get all kinds of wild and crazy with equipment and get like a big camera. You can get really high-powered binoculars, whatever. But you can also get just a decent pair of binoculars for a couple $100 or something, and a decent like point-and-shoot camera, again for a couple $100, and head out and get pretty decent pictures and be able to see birds fairly well. And then you can decide to upgrade if you can afford it and whatnot. But so without further ado, I'm going to jump in, and this is a pie-billed grebe, and they are super adorable. They're really cute little guys. They're kind of a duck sort of a thing. They've got this really short, kind of pointed beak. And this guy he's probably still out at Ward Lake actually right now. You can see them around. So Podolympus podolympus is a pie-billed grebe. Western grebes are another bird that you can see. These are actually more out in marine sort of an area, and they are actually fairly common around here, but they don't come near enough to shore for people to see them all that often, so people are a little bit surprised to see the Western grebes. But they have such a distinctive look with the curved line demarking between the dark and light and the red eye, which you can see if the light catches them just right. This is a Leach's storm petrel, and it is one that you do not see close to land much at all. And you will see this is in a box. It has a towel around it, and I helped out with this a little bit. Facebook is a terrific way to communicate. And the more I bird, the more I learn about various different things that live in this area. People will send me pictures. They'll tag me in posts that they make on Facebook. They'll tag me on posts that other people make on Facebook and say, "What's this?" or "Is this a good idea?" whatever. And this fall, actually about a month ago or so, somebody down at the ferry terminal had this storm petrel in a box in the back room. It had been found on the Columbia as it was coming through town and had hit something, had some blood on its chest, and so they put it in a box to save it. And I figured out where it was at from this post and went down there and got them to move it outside because the room was way too warm where it was at. It was kind of it was way too warm. It's not used to 75-degree heat, right? And to give it some water. They were trying to feed it, but I was like, it needs water more. So okay, I contacted top birder here in Ketchikan, Steve Heinel, and said, "Steve," they're like, "Oh, have him release it in the evening. It is much more of will fly away at dark. Don't let it fly away during the day, and it'll be fine." And that's what they did. I let them know what to do, and so they took it that evening after dark and brought it outside again and let it go, and it flew right off. So I am including this one not to encourage people actually to help save birds, but to actually discourage people from trying to save birds, because they're most often going to be fine on their own. And if you are really feeling like a bird needs to have some help because it's completely dazed or it's bloody somewhere or something like that, try to match the conditions you're holding it in to its normal conditions, like outside, whatever, and don't handle it if you can possibly keep from handling it. So well-meaning people who are taking care of the leeches, the storm petrel, but maybe trying a little too hard to be helpful rather than kind of letting it if it had been put in a box on the Columbia so that it could have left from the Columbia later, that probably would have been the very best idea. So anyway, interesting bird, and they do have this, you can see right here on top of its bill is a little bit of a tube, and that's called a tube nose. They have a tube nose because they are completely marine. They spend their lives out feeding in the marine environment, and they can get so much salt in their bodies from drinking salt water and eating salty foods that they need to get rid of that excess salt, and they can excrete it through the tube nose on top of their beak to get rid of the extra salt, which is pretty cool. There's a few different kinds of storm petrels in the area. This happens to be a Leach's storm petrel, and it did fly away just fine, which is pretty good. Trumpeter swans are not rare, even uncommon necessarily in the area, but I love them anyway. And they don't always overwinter out at Ward Lake. They have in the last few winters. I saw a pair on Saturday, but then they were gone again on Sunday. So there's a few of us that love the swans that are hoping that they come back again for the winter, and they could still that could still happen. But the trumpeter swans are more common here right now. There's another kind of swan called the tundra swan that is slightly smaller and has kind of yellow coming down from the corners of its eyes down its beak a little bit, which you can only really tell if you have binoculars or a good camera to be able to get a close picture of it.
Barbara?
Yeah.
Are these pictures?
I've taken all these pictures, yeah, over the years, which can take me quite a bit of time. I don't go walking with other people because I'm like, oh, wait, what bird is that? I hear a bird. Or want to just stop and take, focus on taking pictures. It can take me a little while. And sometimes the birds don't hold still all that well. So, yeah. Snow goose is actually not uncommon here, but you don't see them all that often. And in some populations in other parts of North America will be all white, but the ones that we get up here have little black wingtips. And some people get confused by that because they think a snow goose would be pure white. I think that this must be some other goose, and then other people, people guess they it's a greater white-fronted goose. Greater white-fronted goose actually has very little white on it. So snow goose right here, and they there was one that hung out at Safeway parking lot for a little while last fall, which is kind of fun. We do have greater white-fronted goose too, but I didn't include that one because I was already kind of getting a lot of creatures going on here. That's a wood duck, Ixpansa, and these are pretty darn rare. And they're so colorful. This is the first one I've ever seen. I saw it this fall out at Ward Lake again. I was walking around and I saw it and my eyes about fell out of my head. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, yeah, they are super, there was two of them, and it was super shy. So, I kind of carefully followed them around the lake to kind of look back and forth a few times. And, whoops. Never got a super clear picture, but I got a good enough picture. And they are super colorful, really fun to see. I was on KRBD the day before yesterday, kind of did a promo for this, and Marty was asking me, she's like, there's ducks, but like, how many different kinds of ducks? She was like, there's just ducks, right? Like, oh my gosh, how many different kinds of ducks? And it's like, you go out to Ward Lake right now, and there's like at least 6 or 8 different kinds of ducks, and it can be more. There's a lot of different kinds of ducks if you get going on that. This is a pair of northern pintail. Males are much more colorful than females in the duck world, so that's pretty fun. These are ones that, spring migration, when things are heading further north, is a really fun time to go birding, and you see a lot of different varieties that you don't see other times of the year. The American widgeon here, also kind of a different looking duck than you would normally see in this area. It's kind of the black with white edges, kind of feathers on the back is kind of characteristic there. It has a funny head. Yeah. At the top of the head can be kind of pretty white too, which is pretty fun. northern shovelers, which are one of my favorite ducks actually because their bill is so big. It's really long, and they can look fairly awkward actually. It's like, how is that? They must have strong neck muscles to hold up their big beak. Green-winged teals, also the colors kind of got a little bit messed up on that. They're not usually blue. I'm not quite sure why this is kind of turned out a little blue, but their head is like this kind of rusty brown color, and then the dark that starts from its eye and arcs back is actually kind of an iridescent green, which is really pretty. And that's the male right there with the kind of real fine barring on the sides. Ringneck ducks, and you can occasionally see the ring around the neck, but much more prominent is the ring around the base of the bill and the tip of the bill. So I'm not quite sure why they focused on the ring around the neck when it's that's not the most prominent ring. And there is actually a female here as well as the male there. And they do have, even like the females are kind of shades of brown. Immature, this is also, if you get going on learning your birds too, immature and juvenile are different colors often than males and females, so they can be pretty confusing. Yeah.
Well, what do you use for a camera?
It's an Nikon Coolpix B600, and it is just a good point and shoot, but it has a zoom. It zooms to like 60x, and I like it. I don't have a great big lens. I wish I had a little better camera, but I do actually like this one because even if it's raining, I can stick it in the top of inside my jacket, my coat, to keep it dry, and go hiking with it. So I can't get as good at pictures as some of the people who have really good cameras, though.
When you kind of zoom in.
I do zoom in, and then I will actually crop down even more, too. And like right now, for all these pictures, I really crop down to just the bird so that you guys could see them better in this presentation. They're not artistically speaking as interesting, but to see the bird there works better that way. So, yeah. There are at least 7 or 8 ringneck ducks out at Ward Lake right now, and one of them is a male with this kind of more brilliant coloring. Most of them are either female or it's hard this time of year to tell females from juveniles because their color is often the same. But they still have this kind of curved line in between the top and bottom coloration, which are a couple different shades of brown with the females and juveniles, but pretty distinctive, striking look to them. Greater scop here, and the difference between a greater scop and a lesser scop is hard to tell. And basically, my understanding boils down to how puffy is the top of their head. How kind of round and puffy is the top of their head. And this is kind of rounder, kind of arcs up more, a little more puffy up rather than a little less puffy. Some birds are really hard to tell the difference between closely related species, which makes it more interesting, right?
Right. Well, one more question. Yeah. Are you knowledgeable enough that you recognized what kind of bird it was when you saw it, or did you have to go home and look it up in a book?
This is a great question. And so as I am learning more, I can in the field go, oh, that's a ringneck duck. At one point I was like, whoa, what are you? And had to like take a picture, bring it home, and look it up, and go, oh my gosh, I think this is a ringneck duck, and send a picture to, somebody, other. I'm not the best birder here in Ketchikan. There's definitely better birders here in Ketchikan, which is a great resource because I can send them pictures and say, Ben, Steve, help. Now I can recognize a ringneck duck. The greater scop, the scop situation is still a little beyond where I'm actually at as far as recognizing them in the field. And gulls, I've almost, there's a lot of gulls I don't have. Yeah, I'm a work in progress as far as recognizing things in the field. But as I do this more and more, I am getting better at recognizing more things in the field. And then it's always nice to be able to get a picture and bring it home and find out what it really is. Harlequin ducks are actually not rare or even uncommon here, but they are super colorful, and they're marine species that a lot of people don't really know that we have around here because to see them you have to like look out the ocean, which is not where people look all the time. And I love their scientific name, which is Histrionicus, which is pretty fun. So, Harlequin ducks. Not quite as colorful as a wood duck, but doing pretty good in the colorful department. This is the male. Long-tailed ducks here, Clingula hymenalis. And these are all either juvenile or female. The male will have the tail feathers can come back quite far, actually. But none of these had those going on right now. So these are actually one of the first of the birds that have been renamed. We're kind of going through a renaming period of time right now. Old name for these were the old squaws, and that was seen as like, oh, maybe that's kind of not the best word to be, we don't want to keep using that word. And so they were renamed based on what they look like, which that trend is now being picked up, and we're going with that idea. Bird names for birds, descriptive names for birds, rather than naming them for another person. Why are we calling Clark's nuthatches? Who's Clark? I don't know.
Yeah.
Some of the birds need to have different names, and this is one of the first ones that started that trend. Hooded mergansers are one of my favorites, and partly because of the way they look, the male there on here with the kind of really spiffy plumage and the white patch on his head. Partly also because of how they act. The males are really territorial and will try to keep other males away from their female, right? And when they're going after another male to get him away, and they don't just like chase him, they kind of chase him and then rear back in a kind of a really strange sort of like coming at him and then rearing back really heavily, like really far, which is kind of fun to watch. It's like, what are you doing? That's strange. So there's a pair of hooded mergansers. There's actually 2 males and a female out at Ward Lake right now. And I was watching them just a few days ago, and the one male is trying to get the other male away, doing this whole behavior. So that's kind of interesting. Red-breasted mergansers are one of my favorite mergansers too, because look at this color pattern on them. It's just such a cool color pattern. All of the mergansers have that kind of real crest, sort of fringe, mohawk sort of hairdo, which is pretty fun. So you get into some of like hawks, and I have no owl pictures. Sorry, guys. I do hawks. Sharp-shinned hawk is the most common kind of hawk here, and you can see kind of the barring on the tail, the streaks on the neck, and there's no real, the eye is real nice and orange, which is kind of fun. Yellow at the base of the bill. The breast is kind of reddish or buff colored with some white speckling on it, which is kind of fun. Kind of reddish orangish depending on whether it's male or female and how old it is. This one landed in my yard right after it snatched a very thrush right out of the air.
Oh,
Whoa. And I ran and got my camera picture.
wow.
And that's why I was looking at me like that. Are you taking my food? Nope. Goshawks, and they are much more, this one guy was pretty far away, but they're accipiter. An accipiter, there's in the genus accipiter, so, and red-tailed hawks, which is in the Buteo genus. And this one is actually, this was the first red-tailed hawk that I had seen, and, well, no, it's the second one I saw. The first one was pretty far away. This is the second one I saw, and I wasn't sure what it was because it's so dark. And so I sent the picture to Ben and the other birds here. It's like, what's going on with this? Oh, it's a dark morph. So some birds will have like darker or lighter kind of coloration, and this so I like morph kind of. So the red-tailed hawks do that. You can have like a real pale morph that is like mostly white with some reddishness on it, and then kind of the more typical like mostly like medium browns and red, and then this dark morph which is like really quite dark, which I didn't know they did that, which is kind of fun. I took that picture over on Gravina, so. He was hunting. I don't think he ever caught anything, but he kind of looked like he was hunting. Merlins are actually fairly common here. They're smaller, they're a falcon. kind of smaller. This guy actually was taken right out along on the edge of the parking lot here at campus. I got up here one day and I'm like, whoa, who are you? And got my camera, and he was completely unconcerned about me getting close enough to get a pretty close up, but I was still shooting up at the sky, which is kind of a hard lighting situation. But you can see kind of the pale eyebrow above his eye, which is one of the markings from a gremlin. I've also seen them out at Ward Lake, where one was taking off from a snag, and he would catch small birds, like Tweety bird, kind of sized birds, out of the air and bring them back to the top of the snag and eat it in quick fashion. And then I stood and watched for maybe 10 minutes, and it caught 3 birds and ate it in a 10-minute period of time, and then flew off. Like, okay, I'm full now. So another place that I'd like to go. So you've heard me talking a bunch about Ward Lake. I go out there quite a bit. There's a number of different kind of places where birds will hang out. There's the water. There's all of the shrubbery around the lake. There's the trees. They have different stuff in any of those places. Another place I like to go is actually up to the cemetery. It's a kind of open, kind of real grassy sort of a place, and there are birds that will land up in there that you don't see other places. And this grouse came down. He was hanging out in the cemetery one day, and I was probably 15 feet away from it when I got that picture. So he was completely unconcerned that I was there. And they're not uncommon, but again, you don't see them that often. They spend most of their time up in the tops of trees, foraging, whatever. So getting one on the ground and getting a really close-up picture of it was kind of unusual. This guy, American coots, are strange birds. And just look at their feet here. Their feet are massive and semi-webbed. They're not webbed across, but they're kind of have some. They're not exactly webbed, but they're pretty good for swimming, and then good for like supporting them on marshy areas because they're big and they're kind of broadened in a sort of paddle-like shape. Apparently really common in some places down south. People who've lived in like California, whatever. Oh yeah, they're mudhens or they're coots. Around here, they're not all that common. And so when there was one a few years ago, there was one that persisted through December. So during the Christmas bird count, we got to count the coot during December bird count, and everybody, yay! We got it, yay!
What's this again?
In December, so in December there'll be what's called a Christmas bird count, and it's a kind of a citizen science sort of thing that's been going on for decades now. That in December, migratory birds will be kind of where they're going to be for the winter time. So if everybody goes out and counts birds in their area during December, we'll get a pretty good picture of how many birds there are where throughout North America. And it's spread actually to a lot of the world. People are doing this. And there are people here, I've helped with it for the last few years. It's just going out, you have your area, and you go out, you spend a few hours each day, during that one day, and just count birds, and different species and how many of you saw, et cetera. So it's a fun thing to get to do. And not this could be a different coot got counted a couple of years ago, which is pretty fun. Sandhill cranes are actually not all that uncommon here, but again, people don't see them all that often. They are pretty tall. They will, this really distinctive red faith kind of situation. They make a god-awful dinosaur-like sound if you disturb them or if you hear them flying over and you're like, oh my god, what? But they overwinter down like in Florida and Texas and like wherever farther south, but then they will migrate up to this area and most of actually further north into the interior for breeding season, and then we'll head back south again. But they do actually, quite a number of them will stop in Southeast Alaska, and you can find them. They're pretty shy, so you don't see them everywhere. But if you kind of you hear, oh, there's a pair of them over in so and so, or you get out a little ways away or up on top of a mountain or something like that, you can see some sandhill cranes, which is pretty fun. Black-bellied plovers. This was in the spring, during spring migration when I saw this over on Gardena, and you can tell why it's called a black-bellied plover from this picture. This is a male and really in fine plumage there. So this gets into the category of like long-legged shorebirds, wading birds, sandpiper-ish type birds, plover and sandpiper business. And there are lots of kinds of them, and some of them don't look very different from each other. For example, greater yellow legs and lesser yellow legs. We have lots of greater yellow legs around here. And it's like, okay, but, and we can have lesser yellow legs too, but how do you tell the difference? And I kept thinking, oh, it's smaller. And I sent pictures to some of the, no, that's a greater yellow legs. No, that's a greater yellow legs. No, that's a greater yellow legs. How can you tell? Well, it's smaller, the bill is shorter. Okay. And then this fall, I was up in Juneau, actually, and went for a walk out along the airport and got this picture of a greater yellow legs and a lesser yellow legs together. The lesser yellow legs are more common in the Juneau area. And so, you can see, right, it is shorter, it's smaller, and proportionately its chest is a little bit rounder. Its beak is shorter in proportion to its body. So there's not a lot of difference, but there is a difference, and they are different species. And do I recognize the lesser yellow legs in the field? Nope. But because I haven't seen enough of them yet. Greater yellow legs, their legs really are long and bright yellow. So this is a solitary sandpiper, and they're fairly uncommon here. They're not there. You don't see that many of them. They are in the same genus. Tringa is the genus for the greater yellow legs, lesser yellow legs, and the solitary sandpiper. Why is this called a sandpiper and not yet a yellow leg? Common names are stupid. That's a bit personal. Common names are not as they don't give you as much information as the scientific name. Scientific names give you relatedness as well. So the fact that they all have Tringa as the first part of their scientific name shows you that they're the same genus. They're closely related. Pluvialis, not in the same genus, so not as closely related. So scientific names can give you some information about relatedness, which is great. And they're named kind of methodically a little bit, which is nice. Common names are given to them by people and sometimes named after people that only they know and not named very methodically sometimes. So this is the sandpiper and the last two are yellow legs, which is like, okay. Anyway, that was a bit of a diatribe. This was taken at the frog pond. And I did not find it, but was called in to see it, so that, I got to see a solitary sandpiper. Which happens here too, is that sometimes if you get put into the birding community, you can get called in on interesting birds to see. Spotted sandpipers, the males during mating season have these big spots on the belly, which is kind of fun. The birds themselves are just a few inches tall, like maybe 4 or 5 inches tall or something. They're pretty small little birds. There's a few of these wading birds that do kind of a butt bobbing sort of a behavior, and these are one of them that does that.
Barbara, how close do you think you got to that one when you took it?
I took this picture, I was probably 50 or 60 feet away, and I kind of zoomed in, and then I cropped it down from there. So, and I start out this whole process usually by using my binoculars to see what it is. Oh yeah, I do want to get a picture of you, and try to get a, braced as well as I can to get as steady of pictures as I can. Take lots of pictures, so I can choose the best one, and then we'll crop down into that one. Since I can't always get that close. Some of them.
Yeah, they seem pretty skittish. I
These are
was
skittish.
wondering how close you would be
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah. And often what will happen is I will get kind of, get as close as I think I can without disturbing something, and I will stand there and just be still and quiet and don't, and let them get close to me. And sometimes that'll happen. I don't walk with people when I'm out walking because they don't want to stand there and wait for the bird to come towards them, which can take a while. This is an upland sandpiper, and it's the only one that has ever been seen in Ketchikan. I saw this a few years ago, and I was up at the cemetery again. And I'm like, that's a different looking bird. I've never seen something like that before. And this, like, I didn't know what it was, but I got a picture of it. And I did my best to identify it and posted it on Facebook and said, "This is a stilt sandpiper. I'm pretty sure." And one of the other, like, much better than me birders in town saw it. He's like, "Whoa, hold on." And sent it to Steve Heinel, and was like, "No, that is an upland sandpiper. It's not a stilt sandpiper. And where did you see it?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I saw it today up at the cemetery, and by then it was dark. It was like 10 o'clock at night when I told them what had happened. And they went up the next morning to try to find it again, and it had left. So this is my only picture, the only one that's ever been seen here in town. Was exceedingly rare, and I just happened upon it and thought, you look different. That's what I got a picture, and so that whole learning can be so exciting. They are definitely not normally around here. They're pretty common in the lower 48, but not around here.
He looks larger.
He was a little bit larger than some of the other ones. He probably stood about this tall, also the top of his head. So when I saw him fly, I was like, "Wait, what?" He just looked enough different and enough bigger than it's wait. Wimbrels are actually not that uncommon here, and they again have this kind of speckled brownish, sort of sandy, sort of look, long legs, a long kind of curved down beak though, and you can see them in the intertidal area, especially in the spring and early summer during spring migration. And they do use that whole, they can bury their whole beak in the sand and gravel, searching for really yummy things to eat. It's like, how do they, that ground seems too solid for that, but they can manage. Black turnstones are common around here, and they have kind of this really, the top is dark and the white belly, and their top feathers kind of look like flames down over the belly kind of areas. Kind of a fun look to them, and you'll find big flocks of them sometimes flying around. The ruddy turnstones around too. They are not as common, and I don't have a picture yet, or else I would have put that one in there. Something to look forward to. Surfbirds also pretty common around this area. Not always around here, but spring and fall during migration in particular. And again, big flocks. I took this at Buggy's Beach. So, and a sanderling. So sanderlings are kind of like a paler gray color, not really so much in the brown at all. And the beak isn't as long as some of the other sandpiper type birds. See, my palmated sandpipers and these guys are like, these are teeny little guys. They're like, they stand about this tall or something. The semi-palmated sandpipers, least sandpipers, and western sandpipers are all about that tall. And I mean, from much of a distance at all, it's like, oh, there's some little thing running around on the beach. And so you look and it's like, oh, okay, it's kind of, you can see the characteristics a little better and identify which one it is. But they're hard to tell the difference between them. And long-billed dowitchers, kind of this rusty reddish kind of ness going on in the long bill. And then we also have short-billed dowitchers, which, again, really similar, bills a little shorter. The color pattern on the backs is slightly different. The long-billed dowitchers, the white edges kind of meet in kind of a V sort of a shape a little bit more than those on the short-billed dowitchers. And I can't always tell the difference in the field, but they're fun to look at. Redneck phalaropes they're one of the water birds we have around here, and not uncommon exactly, but again, people don't, most people don't see them much. Their eating style is kind of interesting because you'll see them and they're kind of instantly recognizable if you know what to look for, because when they're on the surface of the water and they're feeding, they'll swim in tight circles on the surface of the water. Just kind of in dizzying circles. And that kind of actually creates a bit of a vortex which draws some of the food up close to them so that they can feed on it, which is kind of fun. So, what are you doing? I got a picture and read about it and I said, oh, that's what I was doing. Kind of fun. Human skull, and this is one I got called in on too because I wouldn't have done. I was like, I am not good at hulls, okay? there are good people who are good at gulls. I'm not good at gulls. If it gets a gull, I do know enough not to call them seagulls. People are, but Shearman's gull and the juvenile ones like this are like a chocolate brown. They're kind of mature to a more of a like mature to sort of dark white, not pure white. Can't remember what color they mature to actually, but they do have this kind of heavy beak sort of their whole life, which is kind of just characteristic. So if you get really into birding and you really want to know more about birds, like one of the final stages of like total bird nerdiness is to really need to know about all the different kinds of gulls. And I haven't quite reached that stage yet. I'm working on it. Sabine gull is another one, and this is, you can see I got two pictures, neither one of them are super great, but I was watching it fly around, I'm like, the color on the wings didn't look the same to me. And it does have this really dark leading edge, you can see on both of them, which is that's a different pattern than a lot of gulls have. Not that common around here. The most common gulls we have around here, especially in the wintertime, are the glaucous winged gulls, and they have pink feet. And they look like seagulls. Those are the glaucous winged gulls. And herring gulls around here are pretty common, but the Sabine gull and the Herman's gull are pretty uncommon. People are surprised to hear that we do have doves that come into the area, especially when people are feeding them. And so we've got two different kinds of doves that come around pretty regularly, not here all the time, but they're here fairly regular. And again, when people feed them, mourning doves, and then you can see it has these dark speckles on the back. And then the other one is the Eurasian collared dove with that black band around the back of its neck. And they have gone from being pretty rare to actually not being that uncommon, where people are feeding them bird seed around.
Barb, do you have an opinion about feeding wild birds? Whether that's okay or not?
I think it's pretty okay. Pretty bird feed out. The only concern I really hear about people talking about bird feeds is whether or not it's safe to have out where bears are pretty regular visitors. Bird seed can attract bears. So that's a separate problem. But people, and I bird people around here put bird feed out and feed birds and have great fun watching what comes to their feeders. And then telling other people, hey, I've got a such and such, you should come over and check it out. So I think, people have bird feeders are fine. Hummingbird feeders, suet blocks, bird seed, people, those are all. You run the risk of maybe attracting a bear, but that's up to you whether or not you want to run that risk. So band-tailed pigeons, and when I tell people, I saw band-tailed pigeons, they're like, yeah, pigeons are all over the place. But these are not the kinds of, like throughout the city kind of pigeons that we have here. This is a special pigeon that don't actually come around very often. You can see the yellow black bill and the yellow feet. It actually looks a lot more like a dove than a pigeon. So one of the interesting stories we have going on right now is that we have a new hummingbird that will actually spend the whole winter, and they have not been spending the winter for that many years now. Probably first started showing up in the area maybe 10-ish years ago, and people started really noticing them kind of around about 5 years ago. I've had a pair. I've got two right now. They're fighting over 2 feeders. It's like, I've got 2 feeders. They could share, right? Nope. This guy right here, he's really territorial and runs everybody else away. And during the Christmas bird count, we've been counting them, and we're up to maybe like 40 or 50 or so that spend the winter here all winter. So the hummingbirds that we have had in the area for decades, ever, right, are the rufous hummingbirds. And the male is like really rusty back, really rusty on the belly, and then the bright red throat gorget. No red on the top of the head, though. And the female of the rufous is green with the rusty wash down the sides, right? The anise hummingbirds actually originated like in Southern California, the mountain area, maybe down in New Mexico a little bit, and have been slowly expanding over the decades and have moved all the way up to actually the Seward Peninsula. There's some that will overwinter or stay late into the winter in the Seward Peninsula area even. So what I've been noticing here is that I have these guys. This is either a female or immature male here on the right. Anna's hummingbird, and that one is definitely a male Anna's hummingbird. And they spend all winter. You can see this is actually snow with the male here. That white is snow. Cold snaps, and I'm having to you can get a heated hummingbird feeder or swap them out, whatever. 80% of their diet can be bugs, even in the middle of winter time. Even if I have to eat frozen bugs, 80% of their diet can be bugs. And they spend all winter. And I was listening to a presentation by a hummingbird expert saying that you shouldn't worry about keeping them here when they should be heading south by keeping your feeder out, because even with a full warm feeder, they will head south if it's time for them to go. They will not stay just for a feeder. So I was like, great, I'll just keep putting my feeder out. And it's fun to have hummingbirds all winter. And then they actually head south into British Columbia area maybe or something to nest. There's no known nesting that's been happening in Southeast Alaska yet, maybe in the future, but they'll head out and not spend the summer around here so much. I haven't seen, but then they'll come back in the fall. So I don't know that they're displacing the rufous. I actually had a rufous pair that hung out at my place and nested right outside my window this summer, which was pretty fun. So they're definitely here, definitely nesting, and didn't let the Annas keep them from my feeders. But then the Annas are back again. So they are doing what birders are like, yay, it's a range extension. They don't call them invasive species. It's a range extension. There's new birds here. It's so exciting, which is pretty fun. And I'm happy to have them for the winter. So who knows how far they'll extend their range? I'm not really sure, but they've extended it from Southern California up to Seward Peninsula, which is pretty fun. We have woodpeckers in this area. This is a Downey's woodpecker, and this is a hairy woodpecker. And what's the difference? Well, not a lot except for the length of the bill. That's the main thing that you can look for. The Downey woodpecker has a much shorter bill than the hairy woodpecker. And both of these are not actually super uncommon either, but they're not, the red-breasted sapsuckers are the ones that people most often see. And so this is an olive-sided flycatcher. This was another one of my yay, one of my bird moments. Because I saw this guy, I'm like, this is interesting. This is a different kind of flycatcher than I've ever seen before. I am used to the Pacific slope flycatchers. These are common around here. They're the ones that kind of in the summertime they're around and they sound like somebody's whistling at you, like whistling at a dog, kind of. So I figured it looked like a flycatcher, but didn't look like the kind I was used to. And so I sent a picture to Steve Heino. I'm like, what? What is this? Oh, that's an olive-sided flycatcher. When did you take that picture? I'm like, a minute ago? So he came out and he took a picture of it too, because I saw it October 19th. And they are usually long gone by October. The previous, he was super happy to come and get the picture of it too, and he likes giving data and whatnot, right? So he was able to tell me later, he's like, the previous record record in Alaska for Ketchikan was September 30th. And this one that I saw and sent random, I'm like, what was October 19th, which is almost 3 weeks later. So that was not a rare bird, but shouldn't have still been here. We had a really warm fall, though. It was not in a hurry to leave. So again, the Pacific slope flycatcher, tropical kingbird, and they are not normally around here. This one was from a couple of years ago. There were more here this fall. Previous to this fall, there had been one or possibly two seen at the same time in the Ketchikan area. And this fall, at one point, there were 4 of them being seen here. And again, warm fall. They're like, yeah, we're just going to hang out. And they have a really striking, brilliant yellow belly. And then their head is kind of buff with white on the chin area and the black stripe through the eyes, which is kind of cool. Warbling vireys are pretty common here. You can hear them. If you heard them, you recognize the sound. They are shy. It took me a while to get this picture. And they have a kind of a fun white stripe over their eyebrow like that. And so this picture was a super great picture. My camera he wouldn't get super close. It wouldn't let me get close. Clark's nutcracker is not normal around here either. They are kind of west coast birds, but kind of further, like not northern, not the Pacific Northwest usually. And so this is not a record one here, but they're not normal. Not normal around here. So that was pretty fun to get to go and see that one. Tree swallows are pretty common around here, as well as the barn swallows. Barn swallows are more common. There's a couple other different kinds of swallows as well, and they come out in the summertime and hang out, and it's pretty fun to watch them. Brown creepers, this guy right here, is not uncommon, but rarely seen unless you know what to listen for, and you their motion catches your eye and you watch them and look at them close enough. They're small birds, like maybe this 4 inches from the tip of the beak to the tail. And they have an interesting feeding pattern because they have these stiff tail feathers so they can brace against the tree bark like that. And they will fly to the base of a tree and then kind of spiral around it, scurrying up, picking bugs out from the cracks of the bark. When they get up to the top of the tree, they'll fly back down to a nearby tree at the base of the tree. And work their way up that one and then fly down to the base of another nearby tree. So it's kind of fun to watch them do that. They make a really kind of high-pitched, faint sort of call. So if you know what to listen for, and then can watch and see where they're at, they're fun to watch, but they're kind of hard to catch an eye on. American dippers are not uncommon around here. They're one of some people, like a lot of people, it's their favorite bird because they will actually fly underneath the water. They feed underneath the water. They'll fly underneath the water. Their feathers are designed to actually kind of hold on to air. So when they're underneath the water, they're totally encapsulated in a really tight bubble of air. So when they're done feeding, they pop back up to the surface. They're totally dry. They don't get soaked. And they will work in freshwater streams, the edges of lakes and whatnot around here. And they're a songbird, kind of, right? But they swim underneath the water and pop back up. It's really kind of amazing. Just, what are you doing? How can you be going underneath the water and then popping back out totally dry? And this was a juvenile pair that were waiting for mom to come and feed them. So that's pretty fun. Swainson's thrush are not uncommon. It is hard to get your eye on them. They are really shy. They come up from South America up to here in the air and further north and whatnot to breed. And they're the one in the summertime that has the high kind of swirling kind of call that is super recognizable. And it's just a small little bird that's actually really pretty easy to confuse with the hermit thrush. But their call sounds like, and especially like in the morning and evening kind of a time period, although in the middle of summer they'll just go on. But they're here like June and July and that's it. And then they're gone again. This white wagtail hung out here for a little while, and there's only been a few of them that have been seen in the area. But it hung out down at Wolf Point for a couple of weeks, kind of flying back and forth between Gravina and over here and hanging out. And so I got to go and watch it for a few times, which is pretty fun.
Does it wag its tail?
It does. Yeah, so that common name actually works pretty well. That's well named. And he does have quite a bit of white on him. So I approve of this common name. American pipit is actually fairly closely related to the white wagtail, which kind of has the same sort of a look to them. And it also has the tail bob sort of a thing going on. I got that picture of the cemetery. So I put these two actually together because we have cedar waxwings and we also have Bohemian waxwings, both in the area. Neither one of them are uncommon. People actually, the Bohemian waxwings come up in the wintertime. They're one of the winter birds here. And we'll often go to these, you were asking about them, the bushes with the red berries on them that are all over town. and they eat the berries from those. The cedar waxwings will come up for the summertime, and they are not identical. And so the cedar waxwings are kind of a lot. They both have the crest. They both have the dark mask over the eyes. But the cedar waxwing has a lot more brownish kind of buffy tones to it. And the Bohemian waxwing has, especially on its belly, is kind of a real light gray and the back a dark gray. Both of them can have the yellow tail feathers, the yellow tips of the tail feathers, and some red tipping on some of the wing feathers. Not the same species, and both of them are. The Bohemian waxwings are harder to see in the wintertime. Although if you look at the bushes with the red berries, you can see more of them. Yellow warblers are not uncommon here, but again, if the warblers are small, like they're just like this big little guys, and super active, and actually mostly like being in the bushes mostly. So you can hear them, and then be like, okay, I'm looking for a yellow. So this guy, I took this picture from the bridge out at Ward Lake, bridge across the Inlet Creek, and there's all of those berry bushes in the area there, and I knew he was there, I could hear him calling, and stood there quietly for a long time before I saw him. And then finally he stopped long enough for me to get this picture from about, 60 or 70 feet away. And they are yellow, males, females, both yellow. The male has actually red streaking on the breast, which you can kind of see a little bit here on the side of the breast there. Real active. You can see them like flying up into the air to catch bugs and then come back down to their perch, which is underneath leaves and underneath in the hiding. They hide well. You have yellow rumped warblers. You can see the yellow on the head and the wing patches, and then there is a yellow rump patch as well. They're super fun to find, and this is the Townsend's warbler, and real distinctive yellow and black on the front half of the body. So not uncommon, but I wanted to share some warbler things. Warblers are super fun to watch and get some, and they eat a lot of bugs. So the common yellow throat, warbler type bird, and they're not all that common around here. Except at Ward Lake, they like one of the kinds of shrubs around the edges of the lake. There's the rose, what's the kind of flower, the pink flowers? Rose spirea, thank you. The rose spirea out there is their favorite, and so they will hang out there at Ward Lake and sing. And they have this real distinctive markings on their face, which is kind of fun. Wilson's warbler, all yellow. The males have, this is one that's probably going to get renamed because Wilson's like, who's Wilson? Why are we calling? I think it should be called the black capped warbler because the male has this black cap on the top of its head. Took me forever to get this picture, by the way. They did not like to hold still. They I mean, really. Western tanagers, we don't have tanagers up here very often. And this also really stood out. Bright yellow with the red head like that. So they're not rare exactly, but they're like quite uncommon. People get excited if they get to see a Western tanager. Savannah sparrows are not uncommon, but I just think that they're so striking, and they have the yellow eyebrows kind of there. That they come through spring and fall in particular, and they pose really well. They'll see you and they'll just stop and they'll look at you like, what are you doing? Which makes them really easy to photograph. So, golden crown sparrows have this golden patch on the front. They have a stripe from the front to the back of their head. It's only the front part of that that's golden now. The back part of it is white. So to know that you have a golden crown sparrow, you need to see the front of their head. There is a white crown sparrow, okay? But they have 3 white stripes, not just 1 white stripe. It's kind of. He was posing really well. So yeah. And then there's Lincoln sparrow, which kind of has a combination like pale stripe right down the middle, brown and black stripes, gray stripes, and then these yellow kind of mustache sort of stripes coming off of their face, on their face. So. They're also not these aren't rare exactly, but they're not common. The most common sparrow we have around here is the song sparrow, and then we also have the fox sparrow, which looks pretty similar to a song sparrow. But we have other kinds too. You get to know them. Red-winged blackbirds come around here rarely, maybe 1 or 2 a year or something like that. I finally got to see one this fall, which is pretty fun. Brewer's blackbird, again, also fairly rare. Not super rare, but fairly rare. And mostly black, but has this kind of golden brown head and breast sort of area. Common grackle, also another blackbird type looking bird, except for the head and breast are this iridescent blue. And you can see their eyes really stand out because it's kind of that real whitish, pale bluish kind of color. It really stands out. And their call is really, I got called in on this one too. There's a grackle, oh my God. The brambling came to somebody's feeder actually, and oh my gosh, so-and-so has a brambling, and they said that it was okay. So I saw it several times, but it never came down to the feeder while I was there. It was hanging out in the top of the tree, and that was the best picture I could get of it. Not super common. Up in the western part of Alaska, there's a lot of bramblings that can happen, but around here they're pretty rare. So. Red crossbills are fairly common here, and the beak, you can see the tips of them are curved and then crossed like that. And that's not a sign people get, oh my gosh, I saw this bird and its beak was all malformed. It was all misformed. It's not, that's actually how they are. And they use that crossed kind of curved beak to pry open the scales on cones to be able to eat those seeds out of like spruce cones or whatnot. Okay, so that's where you see them mostly too, is way up in the tops of trees. Anyway, so this one was down far. In fact, I could get a decent picture of it, which is pretty fun. And then the common redpolls, which redpolls are their little guys. The females will have just a little bit of red on the top of the head, and the male then has red down the throat and chest a little bit too. And they're little, you get little flock of fairly good sized flocks of them sometimes flying around, and they were eating the seeds out of the alder cones, just mobbing the alder tree. One day I saw them and looked a little bit different. So that's one of the things that I do when I'm out too is to be a birding to me is a way of being more observant of the area where I'm at and just like really actually paying attention and observing what's actually happening and going, that doesn't look quite the same. Sometimes I'm like, oh no, actually no, this is the same. But not always. And sometimes I'm like, oh, this is a cool thing. And then other people get to see the cool thing too because I noticed something I thought looked different and actually like trusted myself and looked into it more. And it gets me outside, it gets me out walking, just really kind of, it's relaxing to me too because I'm not worrying about whatever worries there are in life. I'm just like focusing on what's going on with the birds. So I wanted to just share some of the pictures of some of the interesting birds I've seen in the area to encourage people to not hesitate if you're interested in looking at birds. I like all of them. It's fun to go out and see the rare ones and be like, whoa, what are you doing here? You're so colorful. This is really awesome. Mm-hmm. It's also really terrific to just see another whole big cloud of chestnut-back chickadees that are flying by and chattering at each other. It's like all of them are really cool to see. And sometimes you get to see some pretty rare and unusual things too.
So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes, my
Very
pleasure. And I can take any other questions anybody might have too. Yes.
So, right on the harbor, there's 2 cranes. I don't know what kind they are, but they do make a horrible sound.
The great blue herons also, they are much more common, they'll say, for the home winter, and you'll see them on the dock or on the edge of the water. And they're kind of like, we call them blue, they're kind of like grayish blue, you know. And then they also have some reddish kind of feathers on them here and there, and white feathers. And they stand maybe, I don't know, maybe that tall or something if they're standing up, bill about that long or so, long waiting. And they are pretty common in the area here. You can see them up in trees sometimes too. They actually roost in trees, which is a little surprising because if you're used to seeing them on docks or next to the water, and they're, what are you doing up there? But they roost in trees. So they actually nest in rookeries in trees. Well, they'll have like a big group of them in a whole area of trees where they're nesting together. I don't know of any
They
rookeries. in the area.
sound prehistoric too.
What's that?
They sound prehistoric.
They do sound prehistoric.
I've
Yeah.
heard them on my walk, and it's like
Yeah.
just starting to get light out, and it
Yeah.
scares me.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Good question. Any other questions? Anybody or comments?
Have you ever seen the herons nesting then?
They do nest in the area, but I've never seen them here. I've seen them in trees a few times,
Mm-hmm.
but I've never seen them actually nesting. I watched hummingbirds nest this summer for the first time ever. The nest that was just outside the window, and got to watch them. 2 babies totally fledge and fly off, which is pretty fun.
Do you see very many owls?
I don't see owls. I go out and I look for owls. I hear owls. I don't see
Right.
owls.
In Last Chance Campground, when we've been camping,
There's
I've
big
heard
one.
a bigger one
Yeah.
more than a couple times.
Yeah.
Like he hangs out across and it's really cool. It's usually in the evening, and I get good hearing. And
Right.
so
That's I would love to see owls. I look for owls, but I see hawks. I see merlin and falcon.
Mhm.
But owls are still on my list of things to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the reasoning for the naming convention common? 'Cause you got some birds that were just common, like the name.
Right. This is actually one of the reasons why common names are stupid. Okay. Because they're named the common whatever based on where the person, like there are some birds that are pretty common in the area, and so the person naming them saw lots of them, and there are like lots of them all over in that. So they were seeing them like in the heart of their range, basically. So there's lots of them. They're all over the place. We'll call them the common redpoll, right? Well, I've had people argue, they're not common. You can't call that a common redpoll. I've never seen one around here before. I'm like, well, right, they're not common here, but they were common where the person who named them was,
Right.
however long ago. So to me, if we were going to start renaming things, I would also take the word common out of the names because it's misleading. And name them based on,
frequently seen in Southern Carolina.
yeah, it's right. So, and naming them based on their characteristics too. So like, maybe instead of Swainson's thrush, we could call it like the shy thrush or something like that, or elusive or whatever, or golden thrush, something like that. That gives you a hint of what you're looking for too. Or like the black-capped warbler instead of the Wilson's warbler, because the males have that black cap. You're like, oh, that's what that is. That's it's helpful when you're looking for that. So, good question too.
We had an owl bonk into our window. I think it was last fall.
Yeah.
Because our neighbor has a bird feeder. So, and it was just at the time, and it did fine. It eventually flew off. But it was a big slow, a little small one.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool to see.
I have had not owls, but other birds running in my window too.
Yeah.
You can go out, kind of help it, maybe sit back up or get something like safe or something like that, which is a reasonable thing to
For the
do.
most part, they usually fly away.
They do usually, yeah.
And
And
that's
that's
really hard. And
yeah,
broke their necks. So,
yeah. That happens sometimes too.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
So are we seeing different migration patterns because of climate change?
For a couple different reasons. Birds will get blown off course with big storms. If birders are like, oh, hey, this is a big storm, and so as soon as it gets done, I'm going to go out and see what I can see.
Oh.
And you'll see things like the tropical kingbirds that we saw earlier this fall were here right after a big storm. And so with more bigger storms like that, more of them can get blown off, of course. And it's been a really warm fall, which is an El Nino year this year. But with warming in general, like kind of in North America, ranges are shifting northward for a lot of birds and plants and whatnot because their preferred temperature range and habitat is also shifting northward. And climate change is having a pretty profound effect on Alaska overall as a whole. and changing the ranges of different places. So we'll have more range extensions on birds, and we'll get to be excited to see them. So. Okay, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.